Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Lou TV. It is May 28th. We're going to be talking baseball for Thursday, May 29th. I'm here with Furious, one of the new guys here, one of the new guys on Lou TV, rocking it out. What's up, man? How you doing?
We're feeling pretty good on hump day here, Wednesday, middle of the week, a little bit tired, but hey, we got a lot of a solid, 8-game slate tomorrow or so. It's very manageable. The 15-game slates can get me a little bit because it's almost like information overload sometimes. So even though a lot of people take a day like tomorrow off, I like to actually try to cash in on those days.
Yeah, I know. I feel the same way. Depending on the slate, 2 to 3 games is kind of is rough. Tomorrow is actually a 10-game slate, but I like the small slate sometimes just because it sort of tips your hand a little bit, kind of forces you to go in maybe a certain direction. Whereas on the full 15-game slates, you might be kicking yourself choosing between 4 or 5 different guys that you really don't know who to slide in there. So yeah, I'm with you on that. Otherwise, you said it is Wednesday. It's been a long week already. I know everybody's kind of slowed after the Memorial Day weekend. How's DFS been going for you? How's Memorial Day for you?
Actually, it went really well. I did a show with Chris on Sunday night. And I don't know, between the two of us, most of the picks we talked about went off on Monday. I didn't do much research after. I kind of just went with what we went with in the show. And he had some sweet, this dude loves to hit the curveball or this guy likes the slider. He had those kinds of things. I went with some of those players, and it worked out pretty well. So I cashed pretty good. Took a little breather yesterday just because I don't know. It was kind of nice. It's like had a good show Sunday, had some good picks, had really good results Monday. Great Memorial Day, had some barbecue, of course. You know, thanking the veterans as well.
Right.
So, but yeah, took off yesterday. So it's been a really and I can't let it slide. How are my Red Sox doing? Oh, the streak was broken. Thank God. That was so bad, man. Oh.
Yeah, dude, that's rough. And I'm sure if you've seen any of the shows, and I know you have, you know by now that I'm a diehard Cubs fan. So don't feel too bad. At least you guys have gotten some series victories here recently.
You know,
Um,
it's a sad thing, Logan, because when we broke our curse, finally, after almost a century, I thought to myself, it's like, the only thing worse than being a Sox fan at this point would probably be a Cubs fan. You guys still got the curse. You got the Billy Goats, and you got all this crazy stuff. So I hope it turns around for you. You do got a couple guys that can light it up here and there, but oof.
Yeah, you know what? Oddly enough, and I've had this discussion with some other Cubs fans. I'm really excited for the future of kind of what's coming up. And if you, I mean, I'm not sure if you probably don't follow Cubs baseball too in depth, but we've got some big guys coming up that I'm really really excited about. And I know it stinks to wait, but we've been waiting this long. We can wait another year or two. So hopefully all my Cubs fans out there, if there's any in Lou chat, please let me know because I hate being like the lone guy on the site that's a Cubs guy. Let me know, and we can talk Cubs sometime. But anyway, we should probably get to some baseball. I know it is shorter slate, so it's good to kind of just mess around a little bit here, and I'm sure we'll have time for some more of that during the show. But we should get to some baseball because that's what people are here to tune in for.
Love it. What do you want to start off with? Which game?
Yeah, we'll start off with there's actually 2 kind of early games tomorrow. I doubt they're going to be included in slates, but I do want to let you guys know one of our sponsors, DFS Elite, is pretty sure to have these on a separate slate. Should you be bored at work and want to draft from your iPhone, you guys can kind of target these games. So we will mention them briefly, but we don't have to go too in depth on these. The first game I've got here on my list is the Rangers and Twins at Target Field. Do you have anything down for these games there, Brandon?
I don't. I didn't do the 2 early games. You hit me a little by surprise. That's why I said it was an 8-game slate instead of a 10.
Hey,
So,
don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
with your research on this one, what do you got so far for us?
Don't worry about it. It's Samuel Deduno and Nick Martinez. Um, Deduno, I don't know if you watch any World Baseball Classic, but he was actually really good in the World Baseball Classic. pitched really well in the championship game for the Dominican. And Nick Martinez is a guy out of Fordham. It's weird that I know where these guys went to college. I guess playing against some of these guys that are finally making their way up to the bigs and stuff, playing against these guys has led me to kind of follow their careers a little bit more in depth. But anyway, a guy out of Fordham, both right-handed guys at Target Field. Man, have you been burned by using the Rangers this year? I'm sure you have. And I'm sure many people in chat can probably raise their hand to that.
Oh, God. Even the other day, I think that it was, I don't even remember, maybe Beltry or something that was the dud on the stack. And, I mean, I did a mini stack all over the place. I always miss on at least the one or two guys. I had Mitch Moreland in there, like an idiot. I mean,
right.
I guess he really sucks, you know?
Man,
you find this stuff out. It's like, all right, so maybe if I do a mini Ranger stack, I'm not going to throw Moreland in there. But even so, you nailed that. With the Ranger stack is one of those that I just can't trust or get behind, or I can't pick the magical guys on that roster each day that are going to go off. So.
Right. And, I don't think anybody can blame you for using Moreland the other day in the 3-hole at his price. That was just so tempting. But anyway.
It looked good. It looked great on paper. I can't go back on that. That's one of the reasons why DFS can be fun, too, in the same sense, because it's like, hey, you put every stat out there, and, he looks really good on paper, but the dude sucks. And I should have just stuck to that basic first part. So, yeah, the Rangers are really tough lately, man.
Yeah, I feel you. I do want to mention, while I'm mentioning Deduno and Martinez, Deduno is a really good ground ball guy. Last year in like 108 innings, 59% ground ball rate, which is real good. This year it's down a little bit to around 56, but he is a ground ball guy. He's actually not too bad of a pitcher. He doesn't really get much of a good reputation pitching for the Twins. Kind of a mediocre team that really doesn't they don't really have much. And when you're included on a pitching staff with kind of Ricky Nolasco and Kevin Correa, it sort of drags you down. I know Phil Hughes has been pitching well for them this year. And Denuno is a guy that, if this was a full day slate tomorrow and, these games are included in like a full day slate, he's still not going to be a guy that I'm probably going to be using. But he is an interesting pitcher that maybe you could use in certain spots. Not tomorrow. The Rangers are too hit and miss for me. I just don't even want to try to get on board with it. And Nick Martinez on the other end of things, the Rangers as a pitching staff have been as a team in general as a whole have been just destroyed by injuries. And Prince Fielder, Matt Harrison, Martin Perez, all these guys, every single player that they could possibly have there that's to help this team out. Are not there anymore, because they're banged up, obviously. I don't want to really try to use him either. Honestly, this is a guy that I don't see going really deep in the game. He hasn't been bad this year, and he worked out of the bullpen for a while, had a couple starts early in the year. Now he's back kind of in that starting role because of all the injuries. I can't get on board with using him, even though it is the Twins. I just don't see enough potential from him. 2Ks, 3K, or 3Ks and 2Ks in his last two starts. That's not enough for me. And I'm sure you're a guy who likes the strikeouts too.
That does nothing for me. If I look at his past two game logs, I see 2 and 3. It's like, oh yeah, great. Honestly, I'm looking for guys that are going to get 10 to 11 possibly, that have a huge cap, that could go 9. And I look at a guy like that, and it's like 2 or 3. No, it ain't happening, bud.
Yeah. And Greg in chat here is saying twin stack ? Man, the Twins they're such a difficult team to stack too. I actually threw some twin stacks out last night against Scott Baker, and that did not work out, unfortunately. So I don't think I'll be testing my hand with a twin stack. If it's in the early slate and you happen to be playing it and you want to take a chance on a GPP, I can't really fault you there. It's not like they're seeing a really good arm. I don't think Nick Martinez is going to be too great of a starter in his major league career. Kind of around league average is what I would guess as of now. But just not a team I kind of want to take a chance on. And the next game, I think, is a game that you might see more of kind of your stacks if you're going to be playing an early type slate. Tigers A's, Rick Porcello and Jesse Chavez.
Ooh,
The A's are so much fun as a team. Not only in general, but in DFS. You stacked A's this year, I'm assuming. Everybody has, right?
almost every day, Logan. Almost every day. We can't stop. The problem that you have with doing even a mini stack of A's is it's going to cost you, especially Moss and Donaldson. You know, it's like I play on DK. Those guys are over 5K every day, you know, and it's like you start hitting 6, you're in elite status. And it's like you want to pair those two up, you got to go 10K. So, yeah, I've been riding the train, though. I mean, for every one off game they have, it seems like they have 2 or 3 good ones, you know. So, yeah,
Right.
definitely.
Dude,
And against Porcello, I don't know. You know, we don't almost have to have CK on to talk about that. He's all into the Detroit stuff. He'd give us some. Well, you know, Porcello's good at this certain pitch, and Moss and Donaldson definitely aren't. So we're probably good.
right. Yeah, you know what? Porcello has been, man, he's a pretty good story because I think, he is a better pitcher than I think he gets credit for. But then again, we're talking daily fantasy sports. While I do care and I do follow kind of what these guys are doing just on the field, what his numbers bring to me as a daily fantasy sports player doesn't do anything for me. I don't get excited at the name Rick Porcello, and especially not against the A's. And you mentioned you want a guy who has the chance to go out there and strike out 10 or 11 guys. I don't think this is your guy. His K per nine's around 6, and that's after he saw the Astros once. It's not a guy that I really want to get too cute and try to use. And ground ball rate's down like 11% this year, giving up some more fly balls. That's kind of scary, especially to an A's team that has the potential to hit a lot of long balls. Brandon Moss, you mentioned him. He's expensive, but he seems to almost be like an auto play against right-handed guys. You put him in there against a righty and he homers. That's what I've got there for that. And the Tigers against Jesse Chavez. Jesse Chavez, man, what a interesting guy. This is like an older guy that's kind of.
Yeah. I need some stats on him because I'm very confused by what is going on with him lately because he seems to be hit or miss, but he's throwing up some solid stuff. You said he's older, so what do we got there?
Right, yeah. Actually, this is let's see. He's like 30 years old. And I mean, nobody might know that at all because you've never probably really heard of Jesse Chavez.
I never knew, man. That's awesome. That's cool.
Right.
No.
Right, yeah. He's pitching better than I guess his peripherals would suggest. His walk rate's down this year. K rate's up. Ground ball rate's up. His left on base percentage has been pretty outstanding at 80%. Guys, he's stranding. But his FIP and his xFIP suggest that he's pitching a little bit better than his numbers show. Or I mean, he's getting helped out a little bit more than I guess he should be right now. So I think you'll see him kind of, I know it's been a common phrase, regress to the mean a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And tomorrow against the Tigers offense, it's a tough thing for me to use. I know that K rate's up around 9. And the Tigers have some guys that could strike out. Not Victor Martinez, obviously. He doesn't ever strike out. But I can't really get on board with using him. And I mean, if you're playing the early slate only, then you're kind of really strapped because you have 4 pitchers and, you might need to pick 2 of them. So that's really difficult. But luckily, I don't think these games are going to be included in kind of what we want to do and what we want to talk about. So we'll get away from them. We'll move to some games that you've got some notes for and that the masses want to hear about.
That we put some eyes on because I'm basically fading anything afternoon tomorrow. We got a short slate as is. They're going to bare bones. Are there any games starting at 4? Would they try to include some of them, or
nope. There's
8 late.
Well, actually, that Tigers game starts at 3:35 Eastern, and the Rangers Twins game is at 1:10 Eastern. So they're kind of weird. They'd be if they're in a slate, they're going to be all by themselves. I honestly don't know.
So it would be on a FanDuel or a Draft Street where they lock early and have every game if you're in.
Maybe. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because I looked on DK, I wasn't seeing them popping up too much, but.
Right. Yeah.
All right, let's hit these night slate.
Yeah, we'll get to that. It's the Mets and Phillies. Tell me what you've got for this.
Which one is that? We got the Wheeler versus the Buchanan.
Yep, yep.
Ooh, I gotta look at
What are you
this.
feeling there, man? You feeling anything in particular for these two guys?
Well, we got Buchanan. We don't have much of a read on so far from my notes. He's doing 6 Ks per nine in his minor league stuff. So he had 1 game, 5 hits, 2 earned runs, 5 innings pitched, 66 pitches. I see 66 and I start to wonder, so is he on a pitch count instantly? Was that
Right.
an early game or, so is that a guy that's going to go 60 to 80 at this point? Um, Once that hits, I usually start fading him. And then Wheeler on the other side, he's pitching pretty deep. It's looking like he's around 100 pitches a game or so, which is nice. He's given up 12 runs in his last 4, so but he's gotten better. Like I was looking at his DK logs, he's close to 20 in his last game. He was 8 the game before, -4 and 0. So he's had some rough outings, but he's getting better.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Sorry to hop in there on you.
no problem.
I totally agree. Buchanan, this is a guy who, I think last start might have been his first career start. I'm not exactly sure if that is true or not.
I'm pretty sure.
Right. Like you mentioned, I don't think this is a guy that goes deep into this game at all. You said, 60 to 65 pitches last time through 5. Yeah. And it's not like he didn't pitch poorly. But this isn't a guy that, based on that, knowing that we don't think he's going to go very deep in the game, despite facing a Mets lineup, he can't be on my radar. I need a guy that at least has the chance to go 6, 7 innings, and I really don't see that happening. And if it does, I think it's because he's efficient and doesn't rack up too many strikeouts. Looking at his numbers here anyway, his K per 9 is not good, even in his time in the minor leagues. It hasn't been too great. Right. So that's a guy I'm off. But I do like that you mentioned Zach Wheeler. I think on an 8-game slate, you're going to kind of have to stretch in some directions either way, give or take. And Zach Wheeler, you mentioned he has pitched better in his last few. 3 starts ago, he had a rough one. That was at Yankee Stadium against the Yankees ball club. But other than that, he's had starts where he's had 6, a 10, and 2 7 strikeout games. Those are good. That's good. Those are good strikeout games, and that's something we want to see.
As
the one thing,
guy, that's the kind of stuff I look for. It's like a mid-range pitcher that can do 6 to 10 strikeouts. Like on a really good day, you could get 10 out of him. But some of these solid days, you're going to get 5 or 6. On the opposite end of that, Buchanan's only start, he had 2 Ks. It's like, so there you go. Did he come out in his 66 pitches and get 4 or 5 Ks? It's like he didn't. So what are we really expecting even if he gets 70 or 80 and gets into the 6? What are we going to get, 3 Ks out of him?
Right.
Yeah.
And, automatically, looking at that, you kind of just throw those guys completely off your radar. I guess I like Wheeler as a GPP option tomorrow. I think he's definitely on my radar for those types of games because of that strikeout potential. And, this is a Phillies lineup that is aging. We saw them get no hit by Josh Beckett. It's not like Citizens Bank. Citizens Bank is a hitter's park. But I would love Zach Wheeler a whole lot more if this was at Citi Field. But I'm still not totally off of him. Anyway, though, I do want to talk. Are there any hitters that kind of popped off on your radar in this game that you want to maybe talk about?
If I was going to take any Phillies, I was looking at Ruiz, Rollins, and Bird, depending on lineup, of course. This stuff's really early. I need to see lineups. But when I glance at stuff, those would probably be the 3 I take. On the other side of it, Duda, Grandy, and D. Murph. Those are about the 3 I'd look on the other side. I mean, David Wright, obviously. I try to stay away from the completely top-priced guys on each team. I try to go a couple tiers down. Here's about 3 guys that, they're not going to cost you the top dollar, but...
Right. I think maybe my favorite play in this game as a whole offensively is Daniel Murphy, honestly. Just because that second base spot, we mentioned, and he's actually first base eligible on some sites too. I think he is on DraftKings.
Yeah.
Not that I really care to use him in the first base spot because normally you can find guys there. Second base is a place that you might struggle to find guys to use. And Daniel Murphy, he's a guy that kind of flies under the radar, and he's an underrated player, a solid major league guy, above average, and he hits for good average. This isn't a power guy. The bump from Citi Field to Citizens Bank Park is nice. I like that a lot. But I'm not rostering him feeling like he's gonna hit home runs. And I know you mentioned that you're a GPP guy, so you need those home runs and stuff. So in that case, right?
I don't know. Before you even mentioned him, I talked about him as one of my 3 for them. If I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna go Duda, Grandy, and D Murph, and it's like all 3 of these guys I'm looking for dong potential, even though it could be one of the 5 times they do it all season. So
right.
They get crazy with that. If you look at the odds at the end of the year, some of these picks you hit are pretty crazy. It's like the guy had 5 home runs the entire season, and I picked him on 3 out of the 5 nights. It's like the odds are not great, but a guy like Buchanan, it's almost worth taking a shot on because he's so new and he could get lit up.
I totally agree, man. And Grandy and Duda definitely have big home run upside. I like those picks a lot. And you mentioned David Wright. That's kind of like a no-brainer. He homered today. We don't really have to talk about David Wright, but we hit all those guys there that I wanted to talk about, so that's good. We were on top of that. I'm glad you mentioned Duda because that's a guy that I tend to forget about because it is the Mets and it is Lucas Duda, but a guy with really good home run potential. So we'll move on to the next one, though. The Royals and Blue Jays. This is at the Rogers Center, and you know what that means kind of when you're dealing with the Blue Jays. It is James Shields, though, which is a little bit more difficult matchup, I guess, for the Jays, and R.A. Dickey. You got any initial thoughts here?
I do on this one. This game frightens the shit out of me. I'm not going to lie to you. It's like we're in Toronto. It's Kansas City against Toronto, so you're like, all right, well, Toronto's been super hot. E5, if anybody actually says, hey, my pick is E5, then you probably shouldn't even listen to them because it's like, well, yeah, no shit. Everyone friggin' knows that at this point. So, I mean, Shields against Dickey, I was all pumped to go all in on Shields, even though it's against Toronto. He's one of the higher-priced pitchers. He's got very nice caps. Like, he can hit huge strikeouts. He has complete game shutout material in him. Against Toronto, it's going to be very difficult. But then I started digging into Dickey a little bit, and it's made me really weary of this game. His last 4, Dickey has 23.2, 10.7, 21.3, and 24.3. So Dickey's averaging around 20 points. And even though Toronto's a hitter's park, he has a surprisingly low ERA at home of close to 3, whereas on the road he's around 6. So this game really started messing with me the second I started hitting some of those initial stats, because it's like I would want to stack up against Dickey with a random degenerate Royal stack, Aoki, I don't know, a couple guys, Butler or Hosmer, probably Hosmer, because Butler, he seems to just be a sucky player. It's like you could get sneaky, but the more you look into Dickey, it's like, the knuckleballer in a Toronto park that's hitter-friendly, you think he's going to be giving up beach balls, and he hasn't been. So, I don't know. I'm going to look more towards the pitchers there, and I might even lean Dickey over Shields because the Toronto bats, E5 alone, this month has been unbelievable for him. Him and Springer are about the top 2 right now. Either you play him every day or, you lose.
Right. Yeah, man, I totally agree. E5 is unreal. We don't even need to talk about him just because it's like you said, no duh, The one thing it's really difficult to use kind of any of this and try to make a judgment on R.A. Dickey because the knuckleball is so tomorrow it could be absolutely insane. He could throw a perfect game, or it could be completely terrible and he could get lit up. It's really difficult to try to predict his performance. But you mentioned this kind of being what to do with this, and I do want to mention that Dickey, although the knuckleball, right, it is tough to grasp kind of what it's going to do. But the Royals as a team strike out the least in all of baseball. 15.3%. The next lowest is 17.2. So that's what scares me most when I think about kind of using a guy like R.A. Dickey, is that, we need the strikeouts. This team doesn't strike out. But, then again, it's so difficult. It's it's a knuckleball. Like, you can't, I don't know, at least I don't know any place to just, like, go and kind of find the numbers on, like, what I guess you could pull up the Royals BVP against the knuckleball, but I'm not going to get into that. It's so difficult to try to predict what he might do on any given day, and I think the same thing there tomorrow. But at the same time, I'm kind of on board with, like, yeah, maybe, and I think he's an ultimate GPP play just about every time because you literally have no clue what he's gonna do. He could go out and be awesome, and that's the risk. Are we willing to take that risk? So we'll see.
Against the Royals, you touched on something where they're one of the worst worst for not getting strikeouts, and it's like it scares you off of Dickey right there. But you also touched upon he's a knuckleballer, so you never really know. A stat like that, you can put it on paper and stare at it all day, but it's like, what's the wind going to do to that? Is it going to make it dance just right that the Royals friggin' strike out a ton that one night? It's a really tough thing. I got experience with Boston and Tim Wakefield for years. I watched him, and I don't know, that knuckleball, it's like some nights it's the size of a beach ball. It's, it's like this thing I could hit with a wiffle ball bat and still get a home run, a regular baseball. Other times it's like no one has a chance of hitting it. So I don't know. You touched on really good things there with this is a game it's very dependent almost on kind of the weather, how the wind's going and stuff.
Right.
That's
well,
what
it is.
Eyes on.
It is at the Rogers Center though, so that roof will be closed.
Okay. So if it's isolated, then you still don't know.
Dude, this one's up in the air. I think, basically you might, if you're playing multiple lineups today, take a stab at kind of both sides of this, hitters and, maybe the pitchers, and see kind of what it leads you to. And if anybody has any sort of advanced metrics they want to throw at me with the knuckleball and stuff like that, it's not something that I really look into a whole lot because Dickey's the only guy right now that we ever have to consider. So, it's not really high on my radar. But if anybody wants to throw that stuff out, go ahead, throw it out in chat. We'll make sure to discuss it on one of these shows when we get a chance. But the next game, is the Braves and Red Sox, actually. I'm sure you might have some stuff on this. Mike Minor is going for the Braves. And who is it for the Red Sox? Jake Peavy tomorrow.
Oh, it's my PV. My PV. I don't know. I mean, wrote down some stats for PV, which is pretty bad. He's got 4.5 ERA. It's 4.65. He hasn't scored more than 10 points in his last 4. He's got 8.1, 0.9, minus 6.9, 10.7. That was his highlight, was 4 games ago. So at this point, I mean, my Red Sox are on a tear, obviously. They're pretty much unstoppable. They've got a couple wins in a row. We got the World Series in our sights, but maybe not tomorrow because PV's on the mound. And I mean, he got me a couple times last year. He pitched some really good games, and he kind of made me a believer. But I haven't really seen much since.
Yeah,
so
man.
At this point, on Atlanta, I got some pretty obvious ones: Freeman, Justin Upton, and Gaddis if he's in. I don't know what his status is. I know he's been benched or, did not play a past game or two. So, but, Freeman and Justin Upton, I'd almost let fly at will tomorrow because they could be seeing PV pretty well.
Yeah, the thing that's disappointing about Jake Peavy, and this is a guy that he's kind of been all over the place in his career. He's been a Cy Young type candidate, and then kind of falls off your radar with injuries, and then kind of jumps back with a team like the Red Sox. The thing that jumps out the most to me when I look at Peavy's line this year is the walks. This is a guy that threw 144 innings last year, had a walk rate of 2.29. 2.24, per 9 this year in 60 innings, almost half of what he threw last year. 4.20 walks per 9, which isn't good. You know, when you're giving up 4 free base runners per 9 innings, and you know, I know the Braves lineup isn't something that we kind of just like. You know, there are holes in the Braves lineup, and once you kind of get past a certain point, you know, yeah, that's all I can really say. And this is a team that strikes out a bunch.
No, it's true. One of the things that you mentioned with his walking rate being up, that's pretty alarming. But as you're watching him, you kind of see it in the delivery. He just doesn't have it. That's leading to an extra walk or two. Every one of my friggin' Red Sox pitchers has been suspect. I went off on Buckholz on Sunday night, and Monday, dude got lit up. Now he's getting close to being AAA optioned. I compared him to a dude on Game of Thrones that is half the man he used to be. And it's as we're watching these games, a guy like Peavy, it's like, dude, I think you're going to walk 4 batters as I'm walking. You know? So you nailed that, where that's something you really need to keep eyes on. It's like last year he was better about that. He had a little more swag to him. He had a little more confidence. This year he doesn't have it. And maybe it's run support too, you know, where the Red Sox aren't as great as they have been past few years. Maybe it's in his head a little, but yeah, if anything, I'm playing some Braves bats tomorrow. For the Red Sox, the only guy that I've been really liking lately is Holt and a little bit of Bogarts. You know, I mean, you can always say Ortiz or Pedroia, but, you know, that's depending on the day, who's got the day off, I don't know, who's more expensive, those types of guys. So
Right.
when you're looking for a little more of a bargain value, it's like I'm going Holt or Bogarts. But against Minor, I'm still probably fading a lot of that. I might be taking him tomorrow. So
Yeah, you know, I like Minor, and you know, I think today tomorrow could be a day you see Poppy just sit against a tough lefty in a National League park. He played the first couple of games of this series. I think tomorrow might be a day where you see him maybe take a day off. Obviously check the lineups before you do anything, but he's not going to be high on my radar as it is against a guy like Minor, which is disappointing. You know, kind of where he gets hurt with that lefty because Minor is an extreme fly ball guy. He gives up a lot of fly balls, a 37% ground ball rate. Home run to fly ball ratio is 18.2%. That's way up from last year. You know, I like Mike Minor as a pitcher. I do. I like the K potential. You know, it's around 8, which I can deal with in DFS.
Yeah.
And he hasn't been too great this year, but there aren't a whole lot of options tomorrow. And when you talk about neutralizing a bat like David Ortiz tomorrow, which is, you know, arguably the best bat in that lineup, I think not even much of an argument.
No.
When you talk about neutralizing a guy like David Ortiz, you really, really kind of bring down that lineup as a whole. And, you know, you're going to see a guy like David Ross be in the lineup tomorrow because I doubt Przinsky plays against the lefty. So that's another kind of a bat that, like, you shouldn't be worried about at all. And then just, you know, I think the one guy that I really have my eye on would be Johnny Gomes, a value guy who's going to be in there, who hits lefties well. And, you know, the extreme fly balls from Minor. Johnny Gomes is, you know, maybe the guy that's most on my radar from the Red Sox. Just because Pedroia, with no power potential right now, it's just really difficult for me to roster him. I think he should be on your radar tomorrow, along with Bogarts, but it's tough for me there. Sorry, what were you saying?
No, especially how expensive Pedroia is usually. You know, it's like it's hard to roster him. You nailed something on Minor. I wrote down his last 4. He's got 6, 5, 6, and 6 for Ks. So it's like you're not even seeing those 1 or 2 K games from him. It's like 5 or 6. We like that. If you take Ortiz and Przinsky out of there, you know, I can definitely get on board with Gomes. I like the fly ball percentages you're throwing out there because he likes to swing. You know, he wants that home run. So, but yeah, I'm going to fade most Boston bats tomorrow. I might roster Minor, and I'm going to take a few Braves bats against PV, and I'm not going to roster him anywhere.
Right. I feel that. Let's move on, though, because, man, we're throwing out good stuff. We're dragging down the time a little bit, but that's all right. These next ones should go by pretty quickly. The Orioles and Astros. I know the Astros have been quite a story recently. He won 10 of their last 15. You mentioned George Springer. Against Ubaldo Jimenez tomorrow. 10 earned in his last 9 innings. What do you think? Are you going to be on some of these bats?
We got to go quick, and this is the one to do it on. I'm passing both the pitchers. Jimenez, I'm kind of done with. I've given him a shot because of his high K potential. He hasn't rewarded me lately. Going up against Houston tomorrow, Springer is probably going in every lineup. He won't stop hitting home runs right now. So that's happening. I'll throw Castro and Altuve in there too, usually for Astro stacks. You've got the Carpenter, Dominguez, these other dudes. Carpenter, I think, got a couple dongs today. I'm not
Carter.
Carter, yeah.
Yep.
Chris Carter. I get confused with the NFL players that are MLB, but yeah, he got a couple dongs, so I may back off him tomorrow because what's his next team really going to be like, you know? So I'll fire up Castro, Altuve, and Springer as long as they're in the lineup for sure.
Yeah,
and
I like
that. You know, it's like Baltimore guys against Peacock. He's possibly injured. He's been surprisingly adequate, though. I wrote down too. He's got, mid-range. He's 19 points, 21, 12, 12. I don't know. I've failed in my stacks against Peacock this year, so he could have a solid outing. But either way, it's like you look at the bats in there, and Houston, I'll actually be targeting tomorrow. At least 3 of those guys. So.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned all that stuff because you basically took the words out of my mouth on a lot of this. Peacock has actually pitched right around like kind of what his FIP and XFIP suggest. He had that 11K start against Texas. I don't see him really repeating that type of performance. Baltimore, I think Chris Davis needs to be high on your radar. I always love Adam Jones. Nelson Cruz has been really good. Machado's back. I could go at length about these guys. And you mentioned, this isn't a game that we really have to get too much into. I think it's very hitter-friendly. But I do want to say, you mentioned the K potential with Ubaldo Jimenez. I think that alone makes him a great GPP option because, this is a Houston team that, has a propensity to strike out a lot. They're a young team. And this is a guy that on any given day can kind of light it up and be, the best pitcher on the board. So that's.
I think you're right on to something there because, everyone would look at a Houston mini stack tomorrow as somewhat sneaky because it's the Astros. But it's like, to go contrarian, most people might look at that Stros stack as being viable. The contrarian pick is Jimenez there, and for his price, he's 8,200 on DK. He's right in the friggin' middle. He's a middle-tier pitcher that could actually do 10 Ks in 7 innings, or I don't want to jinx it, but, he could go up the whole stretch. So I love that for a GPP pick. Absolutely.
Right.
Goes against
I feel the same exact way. But I do like the Houston guys you mentioned. And I think that once again, if you're doing the multiple lineups things, you need to have some exposure to those bats, especially the way Springer's been swinging it. Absolutely unreal. Castro is a great guy against right-handed guys, and Dexter Fowler even. He's a switch-hitting guy. He's getting to hit in a good spot in that order, and I like that as another guy that you didn't mention there, but kind of falls right in line with all the rest of those Houston bats.
Yeah.
So another game where it's kind of like, wait and see, like, what is this going to bring us tomorrow? I really think it could go either way, kind of. I'll move on.
From making the multiple rosters, that one you have to pay attention to. You got to make some Jimenez rosters based with no Stros and some mini Stros stacks. Like, that's a game that I'll focus on being on one side or the other tomorrow, for sure.
Right. And then the next game I'm getting to might not even be a game tomorrow. This is the one with the weather concern. Looks like scattered thunderstorms all the way up until game time and through game time until around midnight there at Busch Stadium in St. Louis. It's Giants Cardinals. It's supposed to be Jaime Garcia and Ryan Vogelsong. Ryan Vogelsong went to the University of Kutztown. Just another one of those weird things I know. Anyway, if this game does happen to get played, it's really difficult for me to kind of pinpoint something here. Do you like the pitchers? Do you like the hitters?
I got some stuff that, if there's weather that's going to be related, I was looking at this game as more of a I may take a shot on Vogelsong. Like so if you start involving weather, I don't like to take pitchers in games that could be delayed or
Agreed.
like if they get broke up, you lose your pitcher, and it's if this is the game that has the biggest weather concerns, I'll probably fade them both.
Right.
Garcia had me confused anyways. He's at 9,200 on DK, which is pretty expensive, and he's got 2 games logged, 23 points, 14. But he only has 75 and 83 pitches in those 2. So I wonder, it's like, is that dude on a pitch count that no one knows about? Has he just not pitched deep? I see 75 and 83, and I kind of back off a little bit anyways, because I want 100 to 120. I want that Josh Beckett no-hitter possibility. So,
Right.
with weather being an issue, the only thing I was really focusing on is what I think the pitchers are going to do, and I might have to throw all that to the side at this point, and just keep eyes on the Weather Channel tomorrow night.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And Garcia is back from injury, so he has been on a pitch count, actually. I think his pitch count's been around 95, and I'm not sure if he's even gotten there in either of his starts. No. Yeah, he's a guy that, a few years ago kind of would have been probably at the top of your radar on any given day, but just not a guy that really is jumping out at me tomorrow, and especially with the weather. You mentioned, the weather worries me in general for everybody involved in the game, but definitely more so for the pitchers because if you paid up for a guy like Chris Sale the other day and he threw 3 innings, had 4 Ks, he was like perfect through 3, which is awesome, but he didn't come back, and that you can't take that chance,
Yeah.
So that's what makes this game really difficult. The other thing I want to mention offensively here, Pablo Sandoval's still swinging it really well. Switch hitter, gets hit from both sides. Buster Posey is an absolute beast against left-handed guys, and that's what he gets to see there against Jaime Garcia. And one other thing, Matt Adams swinging the bat a little bit better. I watched his at-bats last night. He was stinging some balls pretty well there. And against a guy like Vogelsong, I think could be a guy, we haven't seen the power yet this season, but a guy that definitely has it. Fat Adams there from Slippery Rock.
I love the Adams. We really got to consult Matt Bell whenever considering St. Louis Cardinals stuff. So, but Adams has always been a dude I like. I mean, you see him get up to the bat, and for older guys like me, it's almost like John Kruk. It's like this bigger dude that it's like, is he gonna dong or are we striking out? What we got happening?
You know who he reminds me of, kind of. Kruk's a guy that fits into this mold too. Matt Stairs. You know Matt Stairs, right? Yeah. He kind of. I know he's a little bit older too, but I've been watching baseball for a long time, so I remember Matt Stairs, and I kind of get that feel from him.
You watch these guys come up to the plate, and I don't know, a guy like Adams, I'm just like, all right, man, we got one of 2 things happening. I can't wait to see which. So
Right, yeah, agreed. But the weather there is scary. Keep an eye on that, guys. But we'll move on here to a game that no weather concerns at Chase Field in Arizona. Cincinnati and the Diamondbacks. The Reds are throwing out Tony Cingrani. Very fastball dependent against the Diamondbacks, and the Diamondbacks are throwing out Josh Colmenter. Tell me what you're thinking here.
Well, some original stuff I wrote down about Cingrani. He's got 4, 7, 2, and 7 in his past 4 for Ks, and both of them have been away. He's gotten 7 Ks. So that's kind of interesting. His home against his away stats they're varying. You've got 4 Ks and 2 Ks in his 2 home stands. So I don't know. He's away. You could look at something like that. His ERA, on the other hand, it approaches 5 at that point, whereas his home ERA is like 3.5. So I don't know. I didn't really know what to think. Arizona's usually hitter friendly, from what I know. You've got some hot bats on there. You always do. Even guys that Chris K was really high on the other night. He was all over Pollock. I think when he hit that walk-off, that was pretty sweet. Parra, Prado, Goldschmidt, Montero. I don't know. I'll probably be taking some bats from that game. Cingrani could be a decent GPP play, though. He does have some K potential, especially being on the road. So I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. Cingrani I love for the strikeouts, but you
Yeah.
did mention this is a hitter's park, and I do really like some of those Diamondbacks against left-handed guys. Paul Goldschmidt, you don't even really need to say him just because he's so good anyway.
Yep.
But that's a guy that's definitely at the top. I like Pollock in that leadoff spot a lot against the lefties. Prado doesn't really hit home runs, so he's not really ever on my radar, although I did have him last night in homered, so that was kind of nice. But don't really expect that a whole lot from a guy like Martin Prado. It's nice to get that when you do. Um,
When you get that, Logan, sometimes you just have to back off. You have to look at how many home runs is this guy hitting through the year. I just hit one. All right, let's count some days.
right, right. Yeah, you kind of have to mark it off like 3 weeks from now. Reconsider. Circle your
Exactly.
calendar. Reconsider Martin Prado 3 weeks from now.
We
Yeah, I know.
we're joking about that kind of stuff, but I've used that a little successfully. If a guy can get 40 home runs in a season compared to 5, I am looking at that calendar a little bit when he finally goes. So
Yeah, yeah. I actually I told you before the show. One of my older brother plays quite a bit, and we kind of we show each other our lineups and we kind of discuss like what we're thinking in terms of stuff. And he saw like on my draft day lineup I had Martin Prado, and he's like, "Dude, no, take Prado out." I was like, "No, man, I like him against Stoltz." And he's like, "Whatever, dude, you're an idiot." And then he hit the homer, and I immediately texted him and was like, "Yo, Prado, shut the hell up,"
that's
So
one of
that's
the most satisfying texts you can send to when
right,
someone actually fought you, and it's like, oh, look at that. Oh, that
right.
stings, buddy.
And I get a lot of that from him because he knows I do these shows, and so I'll mention a guy to him that I really like, and that guy will happen to go like 1 for 4 with a single, and he's like, oh wait, he's like, why don't you go do your show or something, just like kind of nagging on me, but
That's awesome. I love
he's
that kind of shit.
right. He's quick to forget though that I've built him some lineups that have won him, quite a bit of money here in the last few weeks. He's quick to forget that and keep that off his radar. But anyway, I guess we should get back to this.
Yeah.
I mentioned all those guys I really like from Arizona, but at the same time, I do like Cingrani as a GPP option. On
Yeah.
the other end of it, Cole Mentor doesn't do much for me at all. I know this is a Reds lineup that is kind of like bleh, especially without Joey Votto. Were there any Reds kind of on your radar or no?
That's the problem I'm struggling with, is Cole Mentor. It's like I'd love to stack against him, but the Reds, they don't do much for me. I play on DK, so a guy like Billy Hamilton is kind of always in my radar if he's in there, because if he can get 2 stolen bases, if he gets a walk, he has a chance to get 2 more stolen bases.
Right.
And it's like he can make a day out of it. The dude is terrible at hitting, so he's hard to take, but I don't have. You mentioned Votto being out. It's like once the Reds lost him, I don't think I could roster Cole Mentor, but still, I can't really stack against him.
Yeah, yeah. You know what? The guys here, Jay Bruce is back in that lineup. So that's a guy obviously with huge home run potential.
Yeah.
Mesoraco hit a home run last night off Greinke. He's just been exceptional all season long. Those are two guys I think, and Billy Hamilton. I'm glad you mentioned Billy Hamilton. If that guy gets on base, that's points, especially at DraftKings where stolen base is 5 points. That's as much as a double. That's big time. And if he walks, like you said, he can take second and third and score a run. And before you know it, you've got 14 points, which is equivalent to a home run. And, the guy didn't even put the ball in play. Now, the alarming thing for me on Billy Hamilton, and I'm looking at this from his last night, when I think about a leadoff hitter, and sorry, I'm going off on a tangent here. I do this every once in a while.
That's fine. I'm going to let you run with it because I want to hear a Billy Hamilton tangent. I
Okay.
got into a little bit. The dude's a terrible hitter. But if he
Right.
gets on first, we could get 14 friggin' points in 5 minutes. So
Right. Okay. You know what? Being a baseball player myself, when I think of a leadoff hitter, I want a guy who's going to go up there, who's going to kind of work the count, let the guy on deck, let your team see kind of what, the guy is working with at the plate. And I know this is the major leagues. I know they have scouting reports on everybody. They know everything, blah, 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 blah. But still, on a given night, I want my guys to be able to see that. I want my leadoff hitter to see some pitches, maybe get an account to draw a walk and get on base, That's your role as a leadoff hitter. Billy Hamilton last night in 4 at-bats saw 8 pitches.
that makes perfect sense to me. He's getting up there and he's saying a little prayer to God first. He's like, please just let me hit one of these real quick. You know, like even when he gets a walk, I am a little more surprised. It's like, wow, you had some patience there, BH. Good for you.
Right, right. Yeah, man. It's super frustrating, and it's really difficult to take him on a site like Draft Street or Draft Day, sorry,
Oh yeah.
or FanDuel, where they deduct for your guy getting out. This is a guy who's his walk rate's 5.3%.
Yes,
Not
that's a very good point right there. You know, as we're talking about this, and I'm like, on DK, I like Billy Hamilton. It's like, I am not considering sites where you get negatives because a dude like Billy Hamilton is probably fire on most of those sites. You know, like a DK, it's like I get by because the dude can strike out, and if he gets a stolen base or two, he still had a solid game. But
right.
yeah, I think that's a really good point that could be missed by, the viewers. So.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's just difficult, and I don't really want to stress out about talking about him because he could be so. Yeah, and I mean he is such a spark plug to baseball and to the Reds, but he's got to get on base, and he's not doing it. But we should move along to this next one. It's the Mariners.
Just
I'm
one?
sorry.
Do we got one left here or two?
Two left. Two left.
Uh,
Mariners and Angels. It's
oh,
supposed to be Wade LeBlanc and Brandon Maurer. You know what? You mentioned in the pre-show you're all in on hitters in this game, correct?
I was like, I looked at my notes on that, and it was like, stack both sides, fade the pitchers, don't be stupid. I don't know. It's like I had about 3 lines on this game, so it's like, yeah, no, I'm going all in on the hitters. We got Los Angeles Angels, Seattle. We've got the 2 lowest priced pitchers on DK going up against each other. I got a 0 line on Wade LeBlanc. Do you got any info on him? Can you fill me
Yeah.
in? Done some
Here's what I'm going to tell you about Wade LeBlanc. Fly ball pitcher, left-handed guy, which I guess is a little bit better against all those lefties from Seattle.
Yeah.
But fly ball guy, not a good pitcher. It's a recipe for disaster, honestly.
Yes.
There are going to be some right-handed guys in that Seattle lineup, and even guys like Robinson Cano is always in play against anybody. The American League's leading hitter right now, and he's been really good recently.
Yeah.
Another 2 hits for him last night. So all those guys are kind of on my radar, and LeBlanc is a guy that I don't see going deep into this game. Once he's even out of there, you're going to get a bullpen too. You're going to get at bats off the bullpen. So that's one thing to consider, I guess. Pros and cons of stacking this game because you want to see guys against LeBlanc, and at the same time he's not going to be in there super, super long. But you should get at least 2 at-bats against him. So a guy like Stephen Romero, who's going to be real, real cheap against the lefty. Smoke can hit from the right side. I'm blanking on some other guys from their lineup. But, kind of all Mike Zunino, all those guys, they're kind of in play.
Yeah.
And, like you mentioned, I really don't even need to break it down for you. All these guys are in play. Like, we shouldn't even have to talk about Angels. Brandon Maurer is a home run, king. He gives up a ton of home runs.
That's one of my stacking dudes right there. It's like I see Maurer against another terrible pitcher, supposedly. It's like I'm going to be taking a lot of these bats. And
right.
Maurer has not disappointed a lot this year. He has given me what I wanted. He loves to give up the long one.
He's not good. He's not a good pitcher at all. And, I know this is that rotation out there is kind of banged up because guys like James Paxton, guys like Taijuan Walker, like they should be in that rotation right now. But unfortunately, when you're banged up, you got to throw guys like Brandon Maurer out there. Take advantage of it, guys. Like you said, hitters in this game. But last game we got to get to, and then we can kind of recap thing as we're wrapping up here.
Yeah.
Let's see. We got the Pirates and the Dodgers, and I'm not a Pirates fan. But I do get to see them play a lot because I'm about 5 minutes from PNC Park. It's Garrett Cole and Dan Herron tomorrow. What do you have initially on this game? Do you have any initial thoughts?
I do. I'm looking at both the pitchers, and I'm leaning more towards Cole. I'm pretty sure that Matt Bell would be on board. I think it was his favorite pick the first show we did, maybe about 5 days back, but it would make sense. He's had some really solid games, and, the Dodgers are tough. Who's going to be healthy? I think Crawford might have just gone on the 15-day DL, or one of their outfielders did. I just saw that, and they seem to be getting weaker as time goes on. Heron, I'm not as confident about because he'll get, mid double digits for me, single digits. Mid double digits for me, single digits. So I lean towards Cole because he's more a 15 to 20 point DK player for me, and they're both around the same price.
Right.
But
You know,
where I'm
sorry.
factoring in both of the pitchers, I'm not looking at a bunch of hitters right away.
I agree. I agree. I like Cole a whole lot more as a pitcher than Dan Herron. But the Pirates lineup as a whole, if you kind of set these two next to each other, the Pirates lineup isn't what the Dodgers lineup is. And you did mention Crawford. He left last night's game. I didn't see if he went on the DL. I think you're probably right there. But Ethier had a really good game last night. So if you're not about Garrett Cole tomorrow night, which I think he needs to be on your radar because this kid is going to be a stud. I love watching Garrett Cole pitch. I've gotten to see him probably 3 or 4 times now here in Pittsburgh. I love watching him out there. A lot of intensity, a lot of passion. The guy throws hard. He's just really fun to watch. But anyway, if you're not on Garrett Cole, I think the guys maybe you need to think about are D Gordon, obviously, who can get on base and run. Another guy like that. Ethier swung it real well last night and is still relatively cheap. And Puig's just been exceptional all season long. And Adrian Gonzalez, obviously, with the platoon advantage. With that being said, I know it's tough to run those guys. It's such a good lineup, but I do like Garrett Cole. I don't like Dan Herron as much, but the Pirates lineup is, Herron doesn't strike out a lot of guys. That's the you mentioned the kind of back and forth with his stats. Mid-teens, which would be okay for his salary, and then kind of nothing, and then mid-teens to upper teens, and then kind of nothing. That's kind of what he brings to the table, and it can make for a very nice GPP option, especially against the Pirates. We saw the Pirates do absolutely nothing at Citi Field this series, and Bartolo Colon shut them down today. It's a guy that we picked on heavily this season. So
Bartolo, we love him.
Right. While Herron hasn't been too great, he hasn't been anything exceptional, and it's not that I expect him to be real good tomorrow. I'm more banking on the Bucks to not be good. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. It's like I told you as I look at that game, it's like I'll roster Cole more than I'll do Herron because I don't like his game log, and it's good hearing you too that I've put eyes on Cole and he looks like a good pitcher. Like that backs all that stuff up. But the Pirates are a team that I don't think in the year and a half I've played, I've ever made money off stacking them. So it's like there you go. Tomorrow could be the day that Herron eclipses 20 fantasy points. It's a weird thing, but yeah, for hitting in this game, all the guys you said are awesome. D Gordon, it's like especially I'm focused on DK. It's like I really love that. Puig, Adrian Gonzalez. I mean, those are all beautiful if you want to go contrarian to Cole, but I'm probably going to go Cole in a lot of my lineups.
Right. I have Herron splits here pulled up. He has been actually better on lefties this year, but he's given up 6 home runs this season already. And I know that it's not like super great park hitting wise tomorrow there.
Yeah.
So I'm not jumping totally on board with a bunch of these guys, but you talk about a guy like Pedro Alvarez who massive home run potential, and you're a GPP guy, a guy like that kind of always has to stick out kind of in the back of your mind is one of those guys who could definitely have a double dong night, and if you don't have him, you can't win, you know what I mean? Especially on an 8-game slate. So
yeah, on an 8-game slate, you're going to have 2 or 3 guys at double dong, if that. If that. You could be looking at 0 or 1. So you always have to look at guys that have a chance that, reaching way back to the Mets with Duda. It's like
yeah, man.
He has a chance to double dong. It's very slim, but it's like these guys that can hit 2 home runs in a game are definitely on the radar. So, yeah, Herron, I'm probably not going to go with him. If anything, I'm taking some Pirates, but a lot of Cole,
Right. Yeah, I like Neil Walker. He's been swinging it well all year. I do like Alvarez as a GPP play, and Kutch, NL MVP. That he's exceptional. He's kind of always there on the radar. Outside of that, Josh Harrison's been playing at the top of that order. Could be a really, really cheap guy if you need to punt somewhere, but not a guy that I get too really excited about. He brings a lot of energy to the Buccos, but mainly defensively. He's made some spectacular catches here recently. So that wraps it up, man. That takes care. We got through all of that in pretty good time. A lot of good info. Had a good time. You have anything else you wanna mention before we get off here?
Now, one more thing that I just saw is as I'm looking at the starting pitchers for tomorrow, the top price on DK is 10-3. A lot of times we've been getting up into 12 or 12 and a half. So tomorrow's a day you might not necessarily have to punt as much as normal. So feel free to load up on those guys that are mid-range because you can probably fit some really solid pitchers around that. So, but this was a great first show, man. I really appreciate it. I'm glad I could help you out. You weren't going solo. You did an amazing job with that. You know, like going for an hour long just talking stats and everything. My hat's off to you, dude. I'll tip the hat to that. You get a furious hat tip. I did like 5 or 10 minutes with some other videos, and you start struggling. It's like 60 minutes, man. A lot more props than people give you sometimes. So.
Well, I appreciate that, man. It was awesome having you on. A lot of fun. I know we had a good time in the pre-chat, too. I do want to mention before we get off here, if you guys are bored at work, like I said, the DFS Elite app, Grant Gurton's been on here a couple times. They're a great sponsor. There's still some deposit bonuses and stuff like that he could hook you up with from the Ludog side of it. If you're playing that 2-game slate, take advantage of that. You know, there's no overlap. You get a head-to-head game in, get a little sweat in while you're bored at work, something like that. Go ahead and take advantage of that. Also, the millionaire potential at Sports Trade X is happening on Friday. Tomorrow night, Two Gun, Michael Cohen will be on with me again from Sports Trade X. Right. We will be talking about that, so definitely tune into that. You guys, there's a chance to win $1 million.
Logan,
yeah.
I got something to say about Grant, too.
Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
Kind of funny. One of the first things I ever got for swag for DFS was the snapback from Mr. Grant. Look at that. It's like how you're rocking. It's like we got the snapback. So Grant with the DFS Elite, the dude is awesome. Everyone should hit him up. It's funny you mentioned him. You know, like I've seen him on your show and others, and he's doing awesome. But he actually hit us up on Twitter one night and was like, hey, who wants some snapback hats? And sent one right out to me. So got to give him some props for that right there.
Good. Glad to get that in. Yeah, I hope you guys all tune in tomorrow for the Sports Trade X. You know, we're going to be talking about that. Anytime you kind of, you mention $1 million, I think everybody's ears perk up a little bit there. So it'll be fun to kind of talk about it tomorrow. And it was great having you on, man. It was awesome. I look forward to doing shows with you again. But I guess we'll sign off here. You guys have any questions, get at us. And other than that, good luck tomorrow. Take care, guys.
Good luck.